Welcome to Undercomplicating Stuff, where we, two psychologists and coaches with over 40 years of combined experience, share our insights to help undercomplicate important topics. Friendly reminder that this video is meant for conversational and entertainment purposes only. Please see the information section of this video for additional resources. Dr. Gedeon, do you want to do an introduction?
Thanks, Julie. I'm Stacey Gedeon. I'm a health psychologist and the owner of a healthcare consulting and professional coaching business. And how about you, Dr. Radico?
Julie Radico. I am a psychologist, a coach, an author, and a speaker. And our question for today is what strategies might help me sleep better? I do want to caveat as we get started that every person has an individual experience
Mm.
with their own sleep in their lives. Each person has their own sleep story and their life circumstances, their health circumstances that impact how they sleep and the consistency or inconsistency with which they're able to sleep. So, as we talk about this topic today, for all of us to be mindful that the strategies and the myths and things that we think might help us and things that we hear help others might not fit perfectly for you. And so it's always good to be sure to talk to your primary care clinician or a therapist, that somebody who might do like CBTI for insomnia, somebody that really can help target your specific problems with sleep.
I'm so glad that you brought up how complicated it is and that there are so many variables. And there is definitely not a one size fits all. And a lot of people try different things that they think would work or they've heard will work, or maybe works initially and then it stops working. And I think And again, I get it because we want quick fixes. A lot of people who struggle with chronic sleep issues, not just the intermittent, I had a stressful event or work is really bothering me, and so I'm not sleeping well. But the people that have months of sleep difficulty, most nights of the week, those are the folks. And I get that a lot of them may want to go to medication, and that may be what a lot of providers are comfortable with doing to help treat the sleep. And the good news is it works in the short run.
Mm.
The bad news is it works. And so then people think, well, why can't I continue down this path of medication? There's nothing wrong with that. And beyond the scope of what we'll talk about today, having those medications on board long term can create a lot of difficulties.
Mm.
Fortunately, the actual first line treatment for insomnia, again, this persistent chronic issue that interferes with your life, is cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia or CBTI. And you definitely want to find a clinician that's trained in that if you're going that route. But
Mm.
today we can talk about a ton of different strategies that can be helpful, as well as things not to do, which
Mm.
is almost more important sometimes. I'm wondering if you can maybe start us off on common things that people do to try to sleep that actually work against them.
Oh, yeah. How much time do we have, y'all? Hearing people talk about using alcohol as a way to help them sleep. And what we know is that alcohol can act as a depressant when we ingest it. When you're drinking the alcohol, you can start to feel woozy, drowsy, and that's why you're not supposed to drink and drive. Unhealthy for many reasons, and people need to be really mindful to drink safely and cautiously if you're going to choose to drink. It also is a really crappy strategy for trying to help yourself sleep because it might be a depressant, like slowing your system down when you're drinking it. However, once your body starts processing it, it's activating. It's waking your system up as it's really trying to like work through the alcohol. And so that is a very unhelpful strategy. What comes top of mind for you?
Top of mind is scrolling.
Ooh.
Scrolling on our phones, scrolling on our tablets, any sort of, particularly social media, because remember, the algorithms are meant to engage you and keep you going. And that is something that our brains kind of have a hard time shutting off. And a lot of people will literally they'll be scrolling or even work. They'll be working on their computer. I don't know, we'll say it's 10 o'clock at night and they want to go to sleep at 10:15. And they somehow think that they're going to be able, their brain is going to be able to transition from all this engaging, interesting, perhaps, work for them, and then all of a sudden fall asleep. And the brain needs a wind down time. It needs a transition. Think about when we were kids, or if you have kids, there was a bedtime routine, and that signal to the brain, it's time to quiet down. And all that scrolling we know and the blue light from electronics also affects our melatonin level. A lot of people take melatonin to help sleep, and a lot of people don't realize we actually make it, we just mess it up because
Mm.
we continue to expose ourselves to blue light through TVs, tablets, phones. And then that tells our melatonin to go down, and the brain doesn't get the signal to fall asleep.
Yeah, yeah. Building on that, another unhelpful pattern that I hear from people often is that they use their bed for lots of
Mhm.
activities. They're like, yeah, I fold my laundry on my bed, I will scroll in bed, I will, make phone calls laying on my bed. It might be the circumstance of where you live that's your space. As much as possible, try to help your brain associate your bed with sleep,
Yes.
trying not to do other stuff in bed. Bed is for sleep and sex, not for doing other activities. Name anything else. Eating. People will often say, "Yeah, I'll have snacks in bed." I'm like, that is such an active activity that your brain then doesn't know how to help you as much as it could to sleep. Think about your brain as a puppy and like a lovable, well-intentioned puppy that you need to help understand that bed means that you want that puppy to sleep. And so if you're saying, oh, well, sometimes you can have a snack instead of sleeping in bed, then the puppy's like, well, how do I know which is what I'm doing right now? Like, are you going to give me a snack? Are we going to scroll on my phone? So as much as you can, really helping your brain, which is that puppy, learn that bed is for sleep. How might you help people really like stick to that kind of like bed for sleep pattern?
Adding, the term we refer to that is stimulus control. So we want the
Mhm.
brain to associate bed with sleep. And so things like you don't want to go to bed until you're sleepy. And
Mm.
there's a difference between feeling sleepy and feeling tired. If we run a marathon, we're going to feel tired, but we're not going to be sleepy. And all of us can imagine a time when we were exhausted physically. We go to lay down to bed thinking, oh, I'm tired. And all of a sudden our brain turns on because now we're thinking and we're no longer sleepy.
Mm.
So you don't want to be in bed, not sleeping for longer than 20, 30 minutes. And even though we're talking about, routine is good to have a regular sleep wake time as best you can, and it gets disrupted with life. If you're not sleepy, we don't want you to go into bed because then your brain associates bed with where you toss and you turn and you don't
Mm.
sleep. And something that is very hard to do, but very effective, whether it's the beginning of the night or in the middle of the night or repeatedly in the middle of the night, if you wake up or you aren't asleep within that 20, 30 minutes, getting up, going to a different room and doing something relaxing. And I've heard that you have a suggestion that you like to share with people.
I sure do. I know that there are lots of things, and again, this kind of echoes back to how we started this video of figuring out what works for you, as long as it's a relaxing activity, something that you could do in like low lighting and calm levels of volume. My encouragement is for people to invest in a boring book. Pick somebody from history that you're vaguely interested in, but is not going to keep you up at 3 a.m. because you're gripping, like the novel is just so gripping that you're like, I need to know what happened to George Washington. Like that as your go-to activity when you are trying to get your brain to help you fall back to sleep. Goal is if you are then feeling sleepy again, you get out of bed, you're great. You're like, all right, I'm listening to Stacey. I'm getting out of bed because it's been, I think, 30-ish minutes and I'm tossing and turning and I don't want my brain to associate being awake with laying in bed. I'm going to go into the other room. I'm going to turn on the small lamp. I'm going to read this book about George Washington. And now I'm sleepy. Like my eyelids are drooping. I think I could go back to sleep. Go back to bed. Like you again are retraining that puppy to say, okay, like adorable puppy, that is my brain. You are sleepy? Okay, we're allowed to go back to bed. And to do that as much as you need to, retraining your brain, like, okay, we don't like finish sleeping on the couch at night. We go and we sleep in bed. Bed is for sleep. And so, as much as you possibly can, invest in a boring book and read that book only during those sleep time, like that time where it's difficult to fall asleep.
Your bedroom needs to be cool enough, which is sort of between 60 and 65 degrees is what's recommended. Quiet enough. I literally sleep with a white noise machine, and there are all sorts of apps out there that are free that will provide you different nature sounds, things like that. So if you tend to have that sort of ear that's open for things and you're getting disrupted by that, and dark enough.
Mm,
Particularly in the summer when the daylight is longer, people will use blackout shades, they'll wear a mask, anything
mhm,
that might wake you up. If you're waking up consistently to go to the bathroom, maybe you stop fluids before, definitely caffeine before bed by several hours.
mhm,
And also keep in mind, we wake up several times throughout the night. That is totally normal. The goal is to typically we're waking up because we're uncomfortable, and so we want to maybe switch positions, throw the covers off, put them on, and then fall back to sleep. So it's when you're sensing that you're not falling back asleep within about 20, 30 minutes. And to that point, it made me think of do not look at the clock. That
mm.
will be your undoing. If you look at the clock and let's say your wake time is 6 o'clock and you see it's 4:30, you think, okay, well, if I fall asleep now, I can make it because I'll get another hour and a half of sleep. And if you've ever tried to make yourself fall asleep or a puppy, to use your example, it doesn't work. You
Yeah.
cannot force it. It has to happen.
Being mindful that any of the things that we've said, that if you're like, well, that won't work for me because, or this, I don't know if I can make that work for this reason, we hear you. Figuring out what of the strategies that we've talked about might be helpful for you that you can make your own, you can augment in such a way that are useful to the way your world is set up. If you're a caregiver and you have to get up in the middle of the night routinely to take care of somebody else, we recognize that. Like it's easy to say, okay, well, turn everything off and go, like, but you're like, well, I need to get up if I hear this go off or I hear this signal. Key takeaway that I hope people carry with them from listening to us today is that there might be issues that impact your sleep story. Find out what works best for you, figuring out if it might mean not sleeping in the same room as your partner. That doesn't mean there's something unhealthy about your relationship. It might mean that you figured out that one person has a CPAP machine and that machine keeps the partner awake. And so you love each other so much that you invest in sleeping separately because then you both get better quality sleep, which helps you have a better relationship. Figuring out again what works for you. What takeaways would you want people to leave with?
I love that you added that part about partners sleeping
Mm.
separately if needed and to really normalize that. It's not indicative of your intimacy and your relationship or your closeness. Adding on to your takeaway is also the acceptance piece. Some people they like to have their cats or their dogs come into bed with them. Okay, then just accept that. If that happens, you probably won't sleep as soundly. But for you, if that's more important than sleeping soundly a particular night, then that's fine. And just sort of accepting that this is worth it to me right now to spend this time with this animal or whatever the
Mhm.
situation.
I mean, it's figuring out what the healthy level of sleep is for you and what you're willing to compromise around getting some of that time and not in like a gloom and doom, oh, you're letting your pet sleep with you now, you don't deserve good sleep, but in a way of like, yeah, they might move around a little. And if you know that that's going to wake you up a little bit, like you might be okay with that or you might not be okay with that and deciding what that looks like in a healthy way for you. If this topic resonated with you, please share it with someone that you care about. Also, please comment, like, subscribe. You can message us on YouTube or LinkedIn with suggestions for questions that you'd like us to discuss in our future episodes.